This year's conference will be held under the theme, The Role of Competition Policy on Economic Growth. And as part of the debates on the topic, the conference will also take stock of the effectiveness of competition enforcement in South Africa to date. Now, for a look at the important events, we're now joined by the Commissioner Thembinkosi Bonakele from the Competition Commission of South Africa. Thank you very much for joining us. A big gathering that's taking place there. Why is it so important?
Well, it's very important that every year we stop and reflect on the work of the competition authorities. And this year it takes particular significance, not only because it's the 10th conference, but because our economy is not growing at all, or there's very little growth. So we have a conference to discuss the role of competition policy in economic growth, which is quite an important contribution that has to be made for us to grow the economy.
All right, so I know that there's a couple of memorandums that are being signed at this gathering. Tell us, Russia and Kenya, what's important about these two documents?
Well, it's important in the sense that Russia, we are together in BRICS. We have taken stock of the cases that we are working on. We have very similar cases with the Russian Federation. So we were very delighted, and indeed we had already started working with the Russians on a couple of things. So this is taking the relationship to another level. Kenya, on the other hand, is probably the most active competition authority in sub-Saharan Africa outside of South Africa, and is a very important partner in making sure that we promote and implement competition laws within the continent. Again, we also serve with them in the African Competition Forum, which promotes competition across the continent.
All right, tell us briefly, practically, what working with Kenyan authorities might help South Africa, for example?
We've shared a lot of experiences. Kenya, for an example, is quite advanced when it comes to things like mobile money and how that is regulated, because that's an interface between banking and telecommunications regulation. Lots of insights there on how to get the unbanked to actually use mobile phones. And that's a competition issue. It provides competition to existing financial institutions as well as mobile telephony. But they also have a lot to learn from us. You know, our aggressive enforcement against cartels. They find that to be quite useful for them, and they want to learn from us.
Is it possible, if there's organizations that perhaps operate in several territories, that the Competition Commission of different countries work together? I'm thinking just recently, actually, we've seen this big deal in the beer industry where competition commissions in each country had to look at the same transaction. Is that a perfect example of where cooperation across borders starts to take effect?
Absolutely. So you've pointed out that in the mergers, cross-border mergers, there's a lot of work we can do together in looking at these transactions and sharing information. But there's also investigations. So investigations of cartels, abuse of dominance, because the firms these days know no borders. And there are emerging sectors that cut across borders. So it's important that countries are able to work together in tackling these. A lot of our cartels, for example, in South Africa, we know that they are also operating in a whole lot of other African countries. So we have to work together to make sure that there are no safe havens for cartels like that.
All right, we're running out of time, but very briefly, talk to us about the theme of this conference and how competition can contribute towards economic growth.
Well, that's exactly the theme, is competition and economic growth. And essentially, we are really looking at the impact of concentration in South Africa. The South African economy is highly concentrated when you compare to similar economies across the world. What is the impact of this on growing and new people entering into these markets? So that's what the conference is debating.
Mr. Bonakele, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your thoughts on this very important competition conference taking place. That was the Competition Commissioner, Thembinkosi Bonakele from Cape Town, France.